Hey everyone, this is Dan from Let's Fly UAVs. I'm here with my Hobbyzone Aeroscout, and one of the issues that I have when flying this aircraft as a beginner is pretty fast, and the field that I fly on is pretty small, so I'm constantly having to make turns. And I thought, how can I increase the lift, maybe slow it down a little bit? So I added some flaps. This really helps with takeoff performance and landing performance, and in this video I'll walk you through how to make this modification to your Hobbyzone Aeroscout. What I want to do is add some flaps here. So I'm planning on cutting out, I'm going to mark this out 1 centimeter off from that inside edge, and then cut it, draw a line all the way up to here, and then just cut it along here, and then make this a movable surface. So first going to measure it out. Pretty simple. It's just going to go all the way to the length of the aileron, and yeah, I'll show you what it looks like. I've drawn this out here. It's 1 centimeter from that inside edge. Just took a straight edge, made it perpendicular, drew this all the way out to the length of the aileron, and yeah, this should be pretty easy to cut. So with my little servo tester here, you can see that they're moving in tandem, which is what we want. I don't have any, I'm not going to be setting each of the flaps individually. They'll move together. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just testing it out first before I do any cutting at all. Before going too much further, I drew a line down the center line of the flap before I cut, and extended this line up. This line would represent the control rod line. One thing that's really important here is that when you look at this in the light, you can see that there's a spar. I'll put my thumb on there. There's a spar going across, so you want to avoid that. And then there's another spar at the bottom. That's where my thumb is. Sorry. So you want to be in between those two spars. So I drew a line here at I believe this is 12 centimeters. So I drew a line at 6 centimeters, which is the line in the center. So this is 6 centimeters away from the edge. And then I drew a line up. From that point, this is 8 centimeters. So just to reiterate, so I went back and made a mark here. I just took a ruler and drew a cross. So these marks here represent this spar. And then these marks up here represent the spar there in the middle. So this is kind of like the keep out zone. I think I'm at the point now where I have everything aligned, and all I need to do is actually cut this out. I purposely did not cut these out yet, and I didn't put the servos in yet because I have a tool that's coming today that's going to help with making this chamfer, or this beveled edge. So I'm just drawing everything out first, laying it all out, making sure that I have everything in place first. And then once I get that tool, I'll cut out the flap and then make the outline for the servo, put it in, and take it from there. So this is the first flap that I cut out. And the way that I cut it out was using a combination of this tool here, which you can set at a 45-degree angle and has a blade that slides down like this. Or if you slide the blade back up, you can make it into a 90-degree cut. So this is my setup here. I have the tool at 45 degrees and I lined it up with the aileron angle, and then I just taped down a straight edge, and now I'm going to try to film and do this at the same time. It's really hard to get this just right. So this is that angle cut. So I have the straight edge set up, and now I have this vertical, so I'm gonna slide this down. Man, this is hard with one hand. Just slide it all the way down. So now when the wing comes together, you have the aileron wires, connector wires that were already there, and then now you have the two new wires from the servos that are going to be for the flaps. So I think it's a good, clean solution. So now comes the interesting part. When I have the servo's in place and I'm hooking it up to the airplane, and the goal here is to figure out what channel do I put this on. So the way that this is set up is I have an AR631 receiver in there, and for whatever reason the safe mode is linked to channel 6, but channel 6 is also the flaps. So I don't know how to assign the safe mode, beginner, intermediate, and safe, to a 3-position switch on my radio that's not the flaps. So that means I need to find a different channel. And on my radio, which is a Spectrum DX7, the gear is on channel 5. So what I did was I plugged the Y connector of the flaps into channel 5, and that deconflicts using channel 6 for the flaps. I want to use channel 6, but I can't because it will change both the flap setting and the safe mode setting, which is not what I want to do. So I have to, unfortunately, use the gear channel in order to use the flaps. So on my radio, the gear switch is up here. So I have it so that when I push the button away from me, that means flaps down, which would mean that the servo goes, pulls it in, right, when looking underneath the wing. And then when I turn it off, flaps, it should go back to neutral. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky, is to assign the neutral point or the 0 point and full flaps. So full flaps is all the way forward. I want 0 flaps to be neutral position or perpendicular. So the way that I kind of got around this was under the gear setting, the gear menu, I did the travel adjustment that when it's positive, it's 100%, meaning it's going to go all the way forward. And at negative, I put it at 20%, a little bit arbitrarily. I just played with the increase and adjustment buttons until it was about, you can see as I increase it, it's moving it, as I increase it, it's moving it further back. So I just kind of manually played around with this until the flap 0 setting or neutral setting was about perpendicular. And for this particular situation, it's about 20%. So I just put 20% in here. So hopefully this will work. The next step is going to be to actually put on the control horns and the rods, hook everything up, and then test it out. What I'm doing here is I'm just putting double-sided tape on the back of the servo, and then I'm going to reposition it into its final spot. So now is the big test. I put on the control horns and the rods and all that stuff on both sides, the left and the right. And now's the big moment. I have the radio on. Let's see what happens. All right. Rudder works. Elevator works. Ailerons work. And flaps. Ha. Sweet. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we got ourselves some flaps. Watch this. Flaps up, flaps down. Flaps up, flaps down. Pretty cool, huh? And this is going to be great because whenever I put this in safe mode, which for me is position 2 on this switch here, it just does not give enough elevator deflection. So I think by having the flaps down, this is going to really help out with taking off. So as you can see, there's no 3 positions on this. I just have up or down, but I think that's all I'm looking for. So the next step will be to do some takeoffs with flaps and without. Can't wait.